We believe in the American way, and we built this country called the USA, and we fly our flag cause we're proud and free, we're Americans. Red, white, and blue is our way of life. We never back down from a challenge or a fight. Nature provides, God gives the rights, we're Americans. We make up America, it's amazing America.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Sergeant Frank Show, and tonight we have the Bird Dog co-hosting, and on our special guest is John C.H. And we're talking about when you retire, whether it's after 20, 25 years, 30 years of law enforcement, or in John's case, he has a medical retirement due to an injury at work. Do you want to talk about that, John, as far as how you had to leave your job due to your medical retirement?
Sure. The short version is I volunteered to go to a call where a guy had crashed his car into a retention pond. And it was in, a pretty rough part of town. And we were low on manning that day. And, of course, there's other guys and other calls and stuff. So I volunteered to go help. And I was the first one to get there. Crowd of about 300 standing there watching.
Anybody helping?
The driver was, no, I don't think so.
So all the civilians were just standing around watching this person drown?
Well, the driver was swimming to the shore.
Okay.
But I didn't know if there was anyone still left in the car because it was submerged.
Right.
So I started taking all my equipment off to go get in the water. Someone told me that there wasn't anyone in the car, so I just put my stuff back on and then went to check on the driver.
Right.
So he was when I asked him if he was okay, he just kind of tried to speak, but he couldn't make words. He could only make sounds. It was all gibberish. And so I called rescue. Little did I know I was calling rescue for myself, but I called rescue because I just guessed that he had hit his head or something, and in the crash. So I started telling him, sit down, because if you fall down or you pass out, you're gonna hit your head again, hurt yourself even worse.
Right.
But he couldn't speak, but I knew he didn't want to do it.
He couldn't speak. Why?
He couldn't speak. Why?
Yeah, was he hurt or?
Well, his defense in court was that he had a seizure, and that's why he crashed, and that's why he was in that state.
Okay.
So we went back and forth for about a minute. He attempted to leave. Well, he kind of came to, like all of a sudden someone was home. The lights were on.
All right.
And he looked at me and he said, "I'm leaving." And I was like, "No, you're not." So he went to leave, and I went, he's violating state statute by leaving the scene of a crash without making a report. So I went to cuff him on his right wrist. He spun around and bladed off with me. So, I worked in a very violent area, and we had to fight a lot of people. So I knew that's what was coming.
Mm-hmm.
I took out my ass baton, extended it, and started ordering him to the ground. He refused to comply and tried to walk away again. So I grabbed him again, and I was like, "You're not leaving." He spun away from me again, laid it off, and this time his face was facial expression was, "We're going to fight right now." Like it was an imminent fight. So, per state statute or our use of force matrix, if I can articulate that I'm about to be attacked based on the totality of the circumstances, I can strike him first, which I did. I struck him 4 times at a downward 45-degree angle, exactly as brain, twice in his thigh, and twice in his meat bicep shoulder part of his arm, and it had absolutely no effect.
This guy a big guy, or is he a little guy?
He's 5'11", 180.
Okay.
And so at this point, I was like, this is not good. I've got 300 people that are very unhappy with me and hate me anyway. You know, they hate me for who I am, and now they're really mad for what I've just done. And then I have him still standing in front of me.
Are you talking about the spectators were mad at you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they were very unhappy. So he went to leave again. I grabbed him again. I was like, "Dude, you ain't leaving." And backup was still trying to find me. No one could find me. And the last thing I ever said on the radio was, "Someone needs to get here now." So when I queued up, because I kept my radio on my chest, because we see all the training videos of cops getting shot when they reach up for their lapel mic and the bullet goes in their armpit, and then you listen to them gurgle to death on their own blood on the radio until it's finally over.
Right.
So I kept my arms down so that if I did get shot in the arm, hopefully my bone would change the trajectory of the bullet or shatter the bullet, and potentially save my life,
Right.
So the mic was on my chest, and so where he was, kind of facing me, and he said, "You hear him tell me over the tape, if you hit me one more effing time with that thing, I'm going to whip your ass." I'm changing his words just a little bit for appropriateness.
Right.
So he, so I hit him again. Absolutely no effect. And like lightning, he punched me with a right hook to my left temple, which caused me to go blind. I started to turn to try to gain some distance to get my sight back. I don't know if I dropped my stick or if he took it from me, but he had it now, and his first strike came across the top of my right ear. I distinctly remember in my brain, since I had been punched so many times, on the job, I knew that was not a fist. That was something much harder and solid. The second strike came across my jaw, breaking it and putting it sideways in my mouth so that my tongue was over my teeth instead of in the groove where it would normally go. I then went down into the gutter and lost consciousness. So the rest is pieced together. There was only a few people, maybe 2, maybe 4, I don't remember, that would even provide a statement. But FD had gotten there, and so they were witnessing a lot of this too. So basically, he had me down. I was completely motionless. He was kicking me, punching me, hitting me with the stick, slamming my head off the back of my head off the curb. And the crowd gathered around him, and they were, cheering for him, kill that cracker, hit that cracker again.
So he was trying to kill you.
Yes. He opened my holster, he cocked my gun, and when backup finally got there, he was trying to get the gun out. Is my understanding.
What was the time frame that it took for your backup to actually arrive on scene to give you assistance?
I'm assuming from the time that I was unconscious.
No. From the time you got to the call, how long? Once you arrived on scene and for the whole incident, how long before your backup officers arrived?
I would estimate a minimum of 10 minutes.
Wow.
And we worked in a city that, I mean, in some parts, your district was 6 square blocks, and it kept you busy for 12 hours, so you were on top of each other. But we were all coming from different parts of the city. The way they had it manned, this particular area only had a squad that was in service from 3 p.m. to 3 a.m. So go ahead.
Well, John, the reason I'm asking you that is because I think a lot of people don't understand how short-staffed our law enforcement officers are today, and how extremely dangerous it is for our men and women in law enforcement out there doing the job and trying to do it with minimal, effort. I won't say effort, but maximum effort, but minimum manpower to get the job done. And Bird Dog, what would you say is the main reason that they are working such short staff situations today in law enforcement?
The main reason?
Yeah.
Well, right now, I would say the main reason is because of society and the way that everybody's attacking the police officers. Nobody wants to be a police officer anymore, but I don't know what the main reason is. I know that it's hard to find a certain person to be a police officer. Everyone can't do it. And what I mean by that is you can't just say, hey, I want to be a cop and go in and get through everything, all the training and everything that you see and like it. I mean, it has to be in your blood, I think, because, some people get there, they go through all the training, they can handle the training, they're big, badass people, men or women, and then they get out there and they start seeing the real, I guess, society, the way people are. They get screamed at, beat up, yelled at, spit on. They see blood and guts. They see just about everything, and it messes with your heart, man. I mean, it's like you see bad things, you see things that make you melt. You see just a ton of different things, and some people can't handle all that.
So John, would you also agree with that the way the media, whether it's television, radio, cartoons, that they don't, I don't know the word I'm looking for, but as far, I don't want to say glorify, but support portray or support our law enforcement professionals, and the perception of law enforcement continues to go down because our society doesn't respect authority, and unfortunately it's something that we need because our human beings, our human factors are not taking advantage of common sense decisions, and we have to protect ourselves out there from people that make poor choices. So I'm just wondering, because you guys have a lot of experience, in law enforcement. I mean, between the Bird Dog and you, John, doing the job in those types of areas, and I was only an officer and a sergeant for 24 years. It's but I can tell you the decline of our society and the role the media has taken to show that we're not, it's not something that, like the Bird Dog said, not something that people want to go out and do anymore because it's such a negative connotation. But when you pick up the phone to call 911, the dispatcher has to send somebody, and that somebody has to be prepared to make the ultimate sacrifice to protect other
Absolutely.
people.
To me, dying in the service of somebody else was worth it. I would never have looked at, if I had hindsight when I was dead, I would never have looked at that and gone, you died for nothing. When it comes to the media, I don't feel like the media has integrity at its core. It has dollar signs at its core.
Right.
And that doesn't necessitate telling the truth or portraying it, because you can spin anything. And our society now is biased against police officers. We have police officers because there was a need for them. That's why they exist. Because one day there were people crying out saying, we need someone to protect us from these bad guys. So you end up like Mogadishu. There's no society, there's no rule of law, there's no safety.
Well, society's not getting any better, that's for sure, and it's it's bleeding all the way up to the top to the lawmakers who are against the law pretty much anymore.
Right. Oh, they're just as much of the problem. And I was speaking to a very well-educated person the other day who had very different views than the three of us. And she asked me what I thought about police officers not carrying guns anymore. And she said, maybe if we didn't bring the guns to the fight so much, there'd be less shootings. And I told her, well, that the person who does that will be dead shortly. And, I'm a strong, I believe in the Second Amendment, and the first step to a dictatorship, in my opinion, is disarm the public, and disarm the people. But I told her, with everything that's going on in our society, with all the senseless violence and the deaths of children and these crazy things that happen, I was like, if we could eradicate, because you can't just outlaw guns. Bad guys will always get their guns. The only people who will obey the law are people who obey the law. So I was like, but let's just hypothetically say we had a magic wand and we could eradicate guns 100% from our country. No one has a gun, period. And I told that to my dad, and my dad said something very poignant. He was like, well, if you eradicate guns, you just brought back the popularity of the crossbow.
Right.
He's exactly right, because the first thing people are going to do is go find the next best weapon that makes them bigger than you.
Right.
Right. And whenever somebody says something like that to you, I know it's kind of harsh, but you got to tell them, let's just say you're sleeping in your bed and there's somebody comes in. Do you want to hit them with your purse, or would you rather have a gun?
Exactly.
Well, what's funny is that same person, Bird Dog, is going to say, well, I'll call the police.
Yeah, the ones with no guns, and the bad guy has a
Exactly.
gun.
And how long does it take? I don't care what agency it is, whatever their fastest response time is. Okay, there's no faster response time than that person that's sitting in that house that's protected. Because if they're armed and protected, and the criminal element decides to bust through their window, then that person in that home has the right to defend themselves and their family, and they're going to do that as fast as they pull that trigger back, or to hold that person, the criminal element, at bay until law enforcement can get there and make the arrest. But there's no reason that we should turn on our sides and turn our family over to be raped and pillaged by the criminal element. That's not what this country was founded on.
And people say that and have that opinion because they hear the media telling them that.
Right.
Right.
And, poor little Johnny, that broke into their house with a rap sheet, 10 years long.
Right. And she also brought up some cases, that were high profile in this country a few years ago. And well, this guy wasn't doing anything wrong, and he ended up getting shot. And I'm like, um, that's not how I understand the facts. I don't know where people get their facts
From the media
of what actually went on. Yeah, and
now was she
of course,
when she asked you all that, and so is she like one of those that is kind of against the police? Because did she bring up incidents with the police? Is that what you're talking about?
no, she was definitely not a person who had bad run-ins with the police. She was a person who
No, I mean, but the bad
looked
things
at
she
them.
was talking about, taking guns from the police, and the incidents that she said were where somebody got hurt, were those police incidents that she was
One,
describing to you?
the one she mentioned was a civilian that had shot
Oh,
a
okay,
guy.
okay.
And it happened in Florida.
Oh, I know
Of
which one you're
course.
talking about.
We all know which one it is.
Yeah.
And we know the
So
ridiculousness of how the media took and spun that into a twisted pack of lies, and how it made no sense. And people that sit in
right,
ivory towers, it's kind of like the PowerPoint police officers. They're so brave when they're sitting by their computer at their desk, but you put them on the street dealing with a situation, all of a sudden they're like, I don't have my PowerPoint. I don't know how to handle this. They're trying to they're
right,
trying to they're trying to do a pie chart on the back of a car, when the mob is coming at you. You're like,
right,
this is the time for tear gas, not PowerPoints.
Well,
right.
where I was trying to go with that is people that aren't police officers don't understand that if a police officer does something wrong, we as other police officers don't like that guy or girl any more than they do, because they did do something
No,
stupid, and we will go after them. You know what I mean? They think that we cover up
absolutely,
stuff like that. I hate bad cops.
absolutely.
I absolutely
Me,
hate, because they
uh,
give other cops a bad name. There's one
right,
common denominator that nobody talks about whenever there's a controversial police shooting. Not one person ever from the media ever talks about it, and it's that the person that got shot, or even whether they deserved it or not, was resisting arrest or refusing to do what the police officer told them to do. So,
right.
if you don't refuse or resist arrest, there's not a problem ever,
Yeah,
Absolutely,
and
I've
they don't
never
absolutely.
seen
Just
ever
that's
anybody
talk about it.
complying. Yeah, you're right. And going back to what you guys were saying earlier about that nobody wants to be police officers. So what happens? Bird Dog, we had 300 officers go through our agency at one time when we had a particular chief, and I don't want to mention any names that are right with. But anyways, when that happens, you saw the quality of the officers that we were hiring before going down because they were trying to fill the shoes of those vacancies, and the quality of those people, those officers, was not where it should have been. And it wasn't where it was when we got hired.
No.
We the parameters for us to get hired were so much higher. And I'm not saying that today's officers aren't there, but we've all seen over the years how the field training officer program, how the selection process is not putting people in this job that are ready to handle it. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that these officers have not been raised to be resilient, because our society says, here's your fifth place trophy, here's fifth grade graduation, and when you're out in the street, it's win or die. And if you have a
Mhm.
mentality of you're not going to win, well, you're going to die, or somebody else is going to die because you're not there. And if you witness that, and we can see this with all the situations that are happening in our country, with the suicide rate of police officers, firefighters, and our military, is because we've taken prayer and patriotism out of schools. And that's one of the things that Adopt a Cop USA is building back into our programs. We can build a stronger country like we were, but the rest of us have to say yes. we're going to stand up for our country. We're going to discipline our children because we have the right to, and we will grow a stronger country. We have to get off this participation ribbon and get back to, you know what? You're not going to win every time, but you got to try. And it's not the fight and the dog, it's the dog and the fight, or the other way around. It's not the dog and the fight, it's the fight and the dog. And no matter what that person's capabilities are physically, if they don't have the mental capacity for officer survival, they're not going to survive.
We literally had police
Definitely.
officers that we would see going the opposite way on a hot call. But that's what it comes down to.
We had survivor. What are you talking about? We had supervisors going the wrong way.
Yeah, I know. I wasn't gonna say that, but yeah, you have. I mean, when the chief says, "I don't care what kind of officer they are, I just need the numbers." That's when you know. First of all, you have a horrible chief, but then you know you're gonna get bad cops out there, and I don't mean that every shooting situation or every situation where it's criticized by the public is one of those bad cops, because a really good cop could be in one of those situations. But most of the time, when you get people that can't handle the job and they're just pushed out there, and I mean, we had a process. You got hired. You went through a very long training session just sitting in an office. You do shooting, you get sprayed, you get tased, you know, all that kind of stuff. You learn about everything. Then you go to the FTO program. And if an FTO after 4 or 5 weeks or even longer sometimes says this guy's not going to cut it or this lady's not going to cut it, they would let them go. Well, this chief didn't do that. In fact, we had guys that would not make it out on the street, get sent back to that training for another couple months, and then get sent back out to the FTOs, a different FTO, you know, maybe one that's not so harsh, as they put it, to try to push the people through because they needed the numbers. And that was the most ridiculous thing I ever saw.
And who does that put in jeopardy? I mean, it puts us all in jeopardy. It puts everybody, the officers, the citizens, and everyone else. And you know, these chiefs that talk about statistics, well, they're like, oh, you know, crime's down 40% in this neighborhood. Well, if the people don't trust the police officers today, do you think they're making the reports that they used to? Of course not, because they don't trust the police. So why are they going to make the report? So it's easy to say, oh, crime's lower. We all know crime's not going down. It's still going up. But people don't report it because they don't trust us.
Yep.
It's a horrible situation. I hope that, you know, I mean, I have children, and, you know, I mean, they're young, and you ask them, what do you want to be? You know, I want to be a police officer like Daddy. And nothing can, I mean, it gives me such a great sense of pride to hear my kids say something like that. But then also this dagger of fear that gets shoved in my heart, because I know what they're about to step into. And I don't want them to inherit what we all had, and the guys now have. I hope that if they do pursue that career, society has had a major shift in, because eventually something's going to give. Something has to give. The path we're on right now is not sustainable. People,
well, there's only right, and there's really only one way to do it, John. It's not we the government, it's we the people, and we the people. We're the people in law enforcement, or we the people in the civilian sectors. We have to take back our country. We have to say, this is the way we want our children raised. We are going to discipline our children. We're going to institute, you know, those character things, that the duty, the respect, the responsibility, the accountability and respect, you know, is a thing of the, you know, people are like, well, what does that mean? Well, if you don't know what that word means, you obviously don't have it.
You know what scares me the most is, I don't know when the movie was made, but Mad Max was at least, 25, 30 years ago.
Oh,
And look what they were predicting. And I think that our country could go to that. I mean, it could go to
absolutely.
To be
if you
just
keep
like
letting
that.
if you keep letting the tail wag the dog, that's exactly what you're going to get, because eventually it's going to break down. But we still have a chance. We are on the fence right now, folks. We're on the fence right now, and you have the ability to make the right choice right now to put your kids on the right path, because everybody knows that if a kid in school will not sit down and listen to the teacher, they cannot learn math or science or reading or writing or anything. This, do whatever you want, little Johnny. Do whatever you want. There's no account of, when I walk into a school and we talk about to kids about, well, who's responsible for your actions? And they say, my mom, my dad, my auntie, my grandma. I'm like, no, no, listen to the question. Who's responsible for your actions? You are, you know?
Mhm.
And our society is like, oh no, it's so and so's fault. It's this person's fault. It's that person. When you hear a person blaming everybody else, look a little bit closer and you'll find out right away there's one common denominator that they're blaming everybody for, and it's themselves.
Right on.
You know,
That's
my,
absolutely true.
when I got in trouble in school, my parents would come in, be like, so, they'd slap me around first, and they'd say, "All right, what'd he do?" Nowadays, you know what I mean? You get slapped by your parents or spanked or whatever, and then and they're like, "What'd he do?" And whatever the principal or teacher or whatever said, that was it. You were in trouble. Nowadays,
Right.
they come in, my kid didn't do this, and they want to sue the school, and everybody's wrong. My kid doesn't do anything wrong, and
I say, well,
that's a
take them
problem.
out of school, and if that's the case, your kid's such an angel, then why don't you homeschool him? You're such a great parent. You think you can do it? Go ahead. I'm sure you can teach him calculus and statistics and all that.
Yeah, but if you
Have a good
say
time with
that,
him.
then you're the bad guy.
Yeah, the
Right.
point of that, the reason I said that is they won't do it. They want somebody else.
No.
Oh yeah, I had this kid, but I'm not going to raise it. I want somebody else to raise my kid.
Right.
Right.
Does that mean I got to
Like,
go to the mall? I got to watch. I got to watch Housewives. I can't possibly raise my child.
hmm And as any parent knows, it's hard. It's a tough job. It's a tough job to raise a kid.
Yeah,
Um,
I was listening to you talk about how your kids wanted to be police officers. So did mine. But I don't know if it's bad or not, but I pushed all four of my kids in a different direction.
did you?
Yes, I did not want them to be police officers. Even though I would have been proud as ever that they were, I did not want them to have
Right.
to go through what I went through.
So what does that say? What does that say about society as well? I mean, what have we learned over our last 20 years of law enforcement? It's we if we're saying that, the next, and it shouldn't be that way. It should be, we should be saying, it's in our DNA, it's in their DNA, and we should be, helping our kids make those right choices. I'm not saying everybody should do that, but instead of not encouraging them like we should have, we decided that because of what we experienced through all the things that we said, well, we don't want them to do that. When the reality of it is, it's one of the most noble professions in this country today.
Absolutely. I I love police officers so much. Like I'm so passionate about what kind of person goes and puts that badge on, knowing that there are bullets out there that are coming their way. There's spit, there's urine, there's feces, there's everything. And then, God forbid, you get in a shooting. It most people, it tears their life apart because they don't want to kill anybody. That's not what they became a cop for. But then you get sued, then you get indicted, then your kids go to school and they're being told that their daddy's a murderer, and God, it's horrendous. And there's just such wonderful people. Every time that, like, I've had to call, the police in my life. They come and they were just exemplary of exactly what I would want a police officer to act like when they walk in my house.
Well,
Just
we all became police officers for the same reason. we all wanted to help people, and we wanted to make the world a better place and a safer place, and we all accomplished that. Every one of us, and all you law enforcement officers out there listening to this show, you're in the same boat. You want to make the world a better place, and you wanted to help people. And the reason that we got hindered and the things that slowed us down was the BS in the court systems were, you know, the lawyers that twisted, your Miranda, the way you said Miranda, or the evidence that somehow got tainted because you filled out the wrong slip or whatever. And even when a guy had a confession, they want to let them free. That soured our good intentions. And all of us that are on this show today, and all of you officers out there that are listening, we know the system is not perfect, but it's better than no system at all. And if you think it's bad now, you wait till it's vigilantism.
That's where the thin blue line comes from.
It's good. I mean, like I said, it's unsustainable, and it's going to come to a head one way or the other. Either A, you're going to pick up the phone and dial 911, and there's going to be no one to come, or we get together, and like you said, and we start using the morals and values of our forefathers again, and that'll make us strong. That'll put us back on track.
Well, I think we're right on the edge. And Bird Dog, I'm sure you agree with this. I mean, we're right on the fence. And now's the time for people to join our movement. Now is the time to get involved. Cut off your television for 10 minutes. Join us at our events. Help us with our kids in school. And let's do the right thing. We know what the right answers are. It's just a matter of doing it now.
Yes, sir.
Amen.
And John, I know that there's tell us a little bit now once you retired, and then you were medically retired, correct?
Yes, I was.
And based on the traumatic event of the incident you were telling us about, what happened next? What were some of the issues that you dealt with that you had to seek out help to accomplish?
The first and foremost, was PTSD. I wouldn't wish PTSD on anybody, not even the guy that did it to me. Now, I think the fact is that if you're a police officer for long enough, you got it. You're messed up. You're messed up. You can't do the job. See the things we see, do the things we have to do, and not get messed up. This took me to a whole new level of messed up. And, like for the military, the VA is there. If something's wrong, you turn to the VA. For police officers, the best I had was workers' comp, which, I don't think I have to say anything more than that. And then to try to use my private insurance that was, obviously provided by the city. So I was lucky, and I found a good doctor, and he started helping me, and a neuropsychologist, and that we worked together. But there was very little that was done about that I could do or they could do about the nightmares and the hypervigilance and the fear and anxiety of everyday life, of being afraid of being attacked again. So, just for even to this day, if we're going to go to the store and it's a big store that gets crowded, stuff like that, I need to know like the day before, because I've got to build my mind up. I've got to build myself up to okay, I'm going to walk in there. We're going to get what we need to get, and we're going to get out. But I really wish that I could say that I've made more progress than I have. It's incurable. And I'm finding more and more that it's just something that you have to accept and uh, just try your best every day not to lose control or have too many panic attacks or have this or that. So PTSD was the first and foremost. Um, Alcohol. Well, the second thing was a traumatic brain injury. Uh, it was conveniently not detected um, by the neurologist and the workers' comp people who were treating me. Um, it could it could be because it, it would have changed how settlements worked out and things, knowing that there was brain damage. But eventually, brain damage was found, um, and I've never received any sort of treatment uh, for it. There's really no pills or anything you can take. I mean, your brain is damaged. Um, and the worst thing you can do for a brain injury is drink. And when you have PTSD, what a lot of people do is they self-medicate with alcohol. There's a reason why they do that, because it works. That it's a great temporary solution. And then unfortunately, it starts to take over your life and your relationships, and then it puts you in a bigger hole than you were in. Um, so the brain injury didn't come out for several years. The alcoholism, that is something that has a big stigma to it. And cops, I think, definitely understand each other when it comes to drinking. I don't think anybody looked down on me or, thought I was anything less because I drank so much, but they did see that it was destroying me. And they did urge me, all my friends urged me to seek help and go to rehab, which I did, many years later. So it was a lot of time of destroying my body, poisoning myself with alcohol. And finally, it came to a head. And there was an incident. And after the incident, I went to rehab. So I'm starting to see the light a little bit, even though I still struggle. I still have cravings every day, and I still, with alcoholism, you're training yourself. Okay, I have stress. Bam. What do I do to relieve stress? Have a beer. And so your brain learns that. So you're conditioning yourself. Oh, stress. Let me drink. Stress, drink. Stress, drink. Stress, drink. And so anytime I experience stress, my body is programmed now to want alcohol. And, I think it's going to take many years to undo the damage that I have done. But I was able, through insurance, to get help at a private facility down in Florida. And those three things, those are the personal things that probably were the most I had to deal with, not counting financial burdens. Of course, you can't work off duty anymore. You can't supplement, if a bill came up that you weren't expecting, you can go pick up an off duty and be okay. All right, I can now. I'll work this weekend and I can pay. That is gone. My ability to hold a job was gone. So the financial stress put a huge strain on my marriage, along with alcohol and everything else. Thank God I've had some attorneys assist me, and the city did award me my pension. I did try to continue working for 10 years, and I failed miserably. Some jobs I had for just a couple of days, and I couldn't take it anymore. You know, I'd be like, I'm not leaving this house. You know, sometimes I wake up and I've had such bad nightmares and I'm in such a rotten mood and I'm so scared. You know, lock the doors and I'm just going to sit right here all day inside these four walls. I don't care if they fire me, because when you're that scared, it doesn't matter. Fire me. I don't care. And I did end up against every fiber of my being. It made me, it skeeved me. It made my skin crawl to think about applying for disability. And it took me years to come to the decision that I am not providing for my family. And it's because of this PTSD and all these things in my life. Now I need help from the government, you know. And it took me 26 months to go through that process. I applied, I was denied, I appealed, I was denied, and then I went to a hearing. It took me 10 months from my denial just to get a scheduled hearing, just to schedule it. When a veteran friend of mine, you know, he was hurt in Iraq, and he had, you know, the same problems, and you know, he couldn't hold a job, had major alcohol issues, anger, he got arrested several times for things he shouldn't have done, and he ended up applying for disability. But because he was a veteran, it took him 11 months, where it took me 26. And we struggled. You know, that's 26 months with 4 kids and a wife where I'm struggling. You know, we're not making ends meet. We're just barely making them meet, you know. Those things put a huge burden on relationships and your psychological welfare. And you know, I thank God for the fact that the government was there for me, you know, in the end, and they are willing to help me and my family.
I think they try to stretch it out like that on purpose to make people go away so they don't have to give anything. That's just my opinion. It's a shame that it takes 11, much less what you went through, but 11 months is a long time as well.
Yep.
I think it's interesting, John, when you talk about workman's comp. I think a lot of our listeners don't understand workman's comp is kind of like an insurance company and a claim. So they don't want to pay the claim, just like an insurance company. When you get in an accident or whatever, they don't want to pay that. And that's what workman's comp is like. It's kind of like the government, the city government, the county government, insurance company, and they want to make sure it's a legitimate claim, I guess I should say. But like you just said, Bird Dog, and you just said, John, the time it takes to accomplish that seems very extraneous to the person suffering through it and their families.
It is horrible. After I got hurt, I got approved to go back to work after 3 weeks. And yeah, and I was put because I still had hardware in my mouth from my jaw being wired shut, and so I was approved to go to what we called CID, criminal investigations. That would be the detectives.
So working in a light duty status?
Yes.
Okay.
And so, you know, I'm working where guys have the radio on. You know, I don't know why they feel the need to monitor the radio at all times, but they do. Suspects that are going to be interviewed were being walked right behind me. There was no thought whatsoever given to where I was placed, and who I was around, or what I was even doing. There was no thought about, you know, how's his mental health? Where is he at right now? We need to make sure that's one of the big problems, is that agencies aren't stepping up and taking care of their people. They need to if you see signs in your people that they're drinking too much, or there's, making comments that are off, in a suicidal manner, any kind of odd behaviors, you need to act. You need to be proactive about this stuff. And agencies are not. They're completely reactive, if anything.
It's all about just
to
having
these
the
kind of
body
problems.
there.
Right.
Out of everyone, John, who would you say has given you the most support?
The most supportive people that I have been around are other officers who have been through similar things.
Right.
They are hands down. A lot. My old department, I only keep in touch with one person, which to me, it breaks my heart. But and that goes back to the camaraderie thing, I think, like you were saying. But the guys who have been through not only just the incident with on-the-job injuries and things, but also the fight with the agency and the fight with workers' comp and all of that. It's those have been the most supportive people. And then, you'd be surprised to find out who in those groups already has had a problem with alcohol and overcome it and can help coach you, or they're always willing. These people are the ones who are willing to answer the phone at 3:00 in the morning.
Right.
So, hey, when you're laying in bed, you can't sleep, and you're like, I'm going to go to the gas station or wherever. I'm going to go get a beer. Now, Mike, whatever your name is, go and, take a deep breath, calm down. Let's talk for a few minutes.
Right.
And in rehab, they said, most cravings last an hour. If you can get through the first hour, then you will beat the craving, like 90-something% of the time. And the best way to do that is to take your mind off it. Talk to somebody who knows, have someone remind you of what tomorrow morning is going to look like after you go drink tonight, how you're going to feel, how ashamed you'll be, how disappointed in yourself you'll be. When you're reminded of those things by an outside source, you know what, you're right. I would be really disappointed in myself, and my wife would be disappointed, and my children would be disappointed, and I don't want to see their faces like that.
Right.
So I'm not going to go have a drink.
Good for you.
Instead, I'll turn on the TV and I'll watch something funny, or just or a documentary, just something to take my mind somewhere else. And so the most supportive people that I've ever found are other officers. And then when it comes to alcoholism, for me, AA was amazing. I did have problems divulging my previous profession. I will admit that. I didn't want people to know who I was, because I didn't want to hear somebody run their mouth about that. I'm here to get help. I'm here to straighten out, and I don't. You giving me your opinions that are based on nothing are going to hurt me. So I mostly kept that to myself. But the people there are very good with the anonymity thing. You don't have to tell us what you do. You don't even have to tell us your real name. Just
Right.
come.
Right.
Just come and sit. You don't have to say a word. Come and be in the room with us. That's it. And when you hear other people telling, oh man, last night, I was craving it so bad, and this and that and the other, and then you're like, no, but that guy's a lawyer, and
Right.
he had a problem with it. That guy's a surgeon, and he was feeling that way last night. Well, so was I. And once you find people that are like you like that, then it's like, well, I'm not alone. And it builds this confidence up. And
Oh, that's really awesome.
So AA, when it comes to alcohol, for me, AA was tremendous. And where I used to live, I've recently moved. Where I used to live, they had meetings all day, every day. There was a group meeting somewhere. If you needed to talk, you could get on your little app and find a meeting right now.
Right.
You know, where I live now, that's not so because there's just way less people. But
Well, let me ask you a
there
question.
isn't-
Is there a way you can Skype into a meeting? Do they have such a thing like that available?
I haven't found a Skype one, and I will admit that I haven't looked extremely thoroughly, but I did find a like a forum,
Mm-hmm.
and you know where people type, and then there's someone, you know, people respond to that person's comment. When I was having particularly bad day when it came to alcohol, I just I wasn't required to log in or anything like that. I just went on the site and just read what the people were saying.
Right.
And it was 5 minutes before I was like, I don't want alcohol. You know, they're right. That, you know, and when you hear somebody so thankful for their sobriety, like these people are like, without my sobriety, I was nothing. I wasn't a father. I wasn't a husband. I wasn't a man. I wasn't a woman. You know, sobriety, like, you know how people say, without your health, you know, you have nothing. I think it's the same way with sobriety. You know, and there are people that can, you know, have a drink and put it down, and there are people that can't. And unfortunately for me, I'm one of the people who can't. And you know, maybe one day for me that'll change. But as for now, it's 0 beers. That's how many I can have. So I'm grateful for sobriety.
Well, I really have to tell you, I'm super proud of you and your tenacity and your strength and your love and commitment for your family, and that's the reason that you do so much. And I think it's great that you're able to find that inner strength. And I hope that before our next episode, when we tape with you, that maybe we could find some type of internet, social media, you know, program that, and we could tell our listeners that how they can reach out to other people in similar situations, or maybe it's something that maybe we have to start ourselves. I don't know. I'm sure there's a way of doing it, and give those people that, you know, in our profession the ability to, you know, like you said, talk it out and talk about their experiences, because in law enforcement we don't do that very well. We're very good at telling people what to do. It's very hard for us to listen to other people, or actually talk about that we're not the strongest in a particular area. That's very tough for us. So I hope we could find some kind of common ground that we could share that with our listeners. And, you know, maybe that's something that you want to take a look at when you have time. I know you're a busy guy, but that would be an amazing thing to give some of these other officers out there that are dealing with the same things that you've dealt with, you know, and maybe we help them get over that hump.
Yes. Amen. Yeah, I'm currently involved trying to get a nonprofit going for some guys for police officers that are suffering from PTSD. And you know, there's a guy who has a PhD in psychology who's creating the curriculum, and you know, we're going to try to put something together where, you know, everybody can come together, talk about it, realize the impacts that it has on that your mental state has on your physical body, and ways to cope with stress, and try, you know, not try to keep guys from killing themselves so much, and just give them a better quality of life. So
We look forward.
You know,
Yeah, we look forward to hearing that, and maybe we could do a show with him as well to talk about his program. You know, we're always looking for other nonprofits that we support. That's something that's very unique about our program at Adopt a Cop is, a lot of nonprofits don't go out of their way to work with other nonprofits, which I find shocking a little bit, to tell you the truth. But I think that the more and more we go forward, the more we can help other people, find those different things that help us all, move forward together as a team. It's
Right on.
I don't understand it, but I think a lot of it is misunderstandings, and I think a lot of us can work together for the greater good. So, John, I really appreciate you taking time out of your schedule tonight and talking with us about these issues in law enforcement. A lot of law enforcement officers face, and then once they do retire, whether it's medically or aged out or whatever it is, they don't get that support that they were getting before. And if we weren't really getting that much support while we were on duty, you can see right away that we don't have it when we retire, and it gets even harder. So we kind of have to bind ourselves together to make sure our fellow officers out there in the retirement community are getting the assistance that they need. Because I think that somebody sent me a statistic that 158 officers committed suicide last year. But I answered them and I said that doesn't take anything into account for the retired officers out there. Nobody's tracking that, and that's another sad situation right away. So I think it's something we can work on, together. So we really appreciate you coming on the show tonight. You always add a lot to our program, and I think a lot of listeners out there will take this. And if you're listening and you're in a situation like this and you want some help, contact us. We'll be more than happy to forward you some information, whatever area that you're at, and make sure you get the help. Maybe you just want to talk to somebody and get some information. Listen, we're very good at keeping your identity secure. Being former law enforcement officers, that's something we highly respect. So, and if you don't trust us for whatever reason, there's a lot of agencies out there that you can contact and get the help that you need, or just talk to somebody. Honestly, I mean, don't not do something about it, because your friends, your family, whether you believe it or not, we need you, and we appreciate everything you've done, the sacrifices you've made to serve your country, and we want that to, we want to continue that. So anything else you'd like to add to that, John, or Bird Dog?
No, I think we pretty much covered everything.
Yeah, I just appreciate you guys having me on, and you're doing great things, and I'm proud to be I'm proud to be affiliated or associated with you.
Were you gonna say that you were our friend? Because I consider you my friend.
He didn't want to admit it. I understand. He was like, I don't want to go that far.
Can I be your
well,
friend?
I thought it might be improper, but yes, I'm proud to be you guys' friend and brother, and I know the future holds good things for Adopt a Cop and the other people who get involved with you. It has to. I mean, you guys are doing so much good. You can't fail.
Well, John, as long as we have people like you that we can lean on and help us, we will be successful and we will win this fight against all this other stuff. So again, thank you, John, so much for being on the show. Bird Dog, your co-hosting skills are legendary. I don't even know what to say sometimes.
How about you tell everybody where they can visit us?
You can visit us at the Bird Dog's house. Come around 2 a.m. That's his favorite time.
I am armed. I will not hit you with my purse.
He eats lots of beans. Be careful. Make sure you come downwind or upwind or whatever. If you're going to follow us, please like and share us on Facebook and YouTube at Adopt a Cop USA official site. And our unbelievable website is myAACUSA.org. And I don't know if I could do that phonetically, but it's Mike Yankee Alpha Charlie Uniform Sierra Alpha.org, because I can't do it all. So
Come on, you can.
everybody knows how to spell. You know, when you don't say the phonetic alphabet for a while, it's not easy. It's not easy. You know, I wasn't good at it when I was a police officer. So, and then we had our friends from Louisiana that made up their own phonetic alphabet. Be like, 1, 2, 9, catfish, jambalaya, 2, 1. You're like, what the heck is he talking about?
What did he say? I remember the one. I know who you're talking about. I remember the one time he says, "Yeah, I'm here, and they're running like somebody kicked an anthill." And I just fell over laughing. It was so funny.
I'll tell you what. One day we're going to do a show that's a little lighter, and we're going to talk about some of the fun things that officers say on the radio that the public never hears about. But I can tell you, and most of it will be clean. But man, we had some guys that were just that's a whole nother show. But we'll get there one of these days. We have enough time. We probably ran out of tape today, but I mean, we'll definitely do one in the future about funny things police officers and deputies say on the radio.
Ooh, I bet you there's a lot of those.
Yeah.
So, John, thank you very much. Bird Dog, thank you very much. And from here at Adopt a Cop USA, thank everybody out there that supports law enforcement in our country. And everybody, please be careful this new year. We're all looking forward to great things, and God bless America.
Listen, young one, it's not cool to be a thug. There is nothing good about going selling drugs. The money don't mean nothing when you're harming everyone. And you can get killed bringing pain to your mom. Take a legal substance and you can OT. Overdose from nasty chemicals in the streets. Live a happy life, you gotta keep your hands clean. And most importantly, think about your family. I know you're smart to do right and not throw your life away. Drugs and guns bring destruction and terror, punch your family.